Hi, Rob Brown here from the Accounting Influencers podcast, here with a special bonus episode of our show, where we inform accountants all over the world about what it takes to be relevant and influential and authoritative in their role, how they stay in touch and how they apply that to their leadership roles and making their accounting firms better. I've got three fantastic guests with us today, and we're going to do a deep dive on where accountants go and why they go to different events. And we might give a shout out to a couple events. I'm going to get the guests to introduce themselves in just a moment, but rest assured that your job today is to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. And there's so much going on in the accounting world at the moment, so many disruptive influences. That's why we've got some experts today to shine a light on what is really happening. So, Will Yap, I'll come to you first. Give us a little introduction, sir.
Sure. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer here at WriteWorks, part of the executive team. I've been here for about 8 years now, working with all the great customers that we have and partners in the industry, sort of focused on the different technology providers, vendors, strategic partners that really drive the accounting space. So very familiar with tons of events, been to a lot of them, organized a lot of them. And super excited to talk about this topic today.
Thank you for coming on. And we are interested in people that go to a lot of events because the question is why. These are busy times for accounting professionals, tech professionals, and every moment they spend at an event is a moment they're not spending with clients. So we're going to get into that. But Denise, lovely to have you with us. Please tell us a little bit about you and your world.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. It's great to be here. I'm Denise Meyer. I'm the Senior Director of Events Community and Partnerships at WriteWorks. I've been with the organization for about 5 years now, and part of what I do here is run all of our experiential events. So that's going to be our owned conferences, our participation in industry shows, and also working closely with Will and team on partnerships and community. So the community element really is working on social media, working with folks in the customer experience realm, so reviews, references, things of that nature. I do speak a lot with different customers and also running the events, clearly making sure that we are presenting to them what they're looking for. We know time is valuable.
It's lovely to have you with us. And we've got Robert Prusa as well. So, Robert, tell us a little bit about your world.
Yes, indeed. I'm the Senior Director of Client Success for WriteWorks. I've been with the business for about 13 years now, and I'm thinking about clients in and out every day, trying to understand what they need, why they need what they want, and therefore trying to deliver those things to them. That's what we're thinking about. With regard to events, I do attend probably 3, 4, 5 events in the accounting world a year. My main intent is to meet with people there, and I think we'll get further into that as we move into it.
Well, Will, you understand what events mean for companies and the industries supporting them, as well as experience attending. What makes a good event for CPAs and accounting firms in your eyes?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rob. I think mostly I would say it's a short, succinct event where they can go and understand the technologies, the trends, and the capabilities they need to run a productive and more efficient firm. To you, it's what you said earlier, it's all back to their time. So, time spent has to be value out the other end. And what I see when firms go to a lot of these events is they're looking to really talk to their peers about real world issues they're having, whether it be staffing or security or technology issues, and then understand how they can become better based on what they're seeing at these particular events. So if they can go in a short amount of time, say a couple, 2, 3 days, and walk back out the other side with a better understanding on how to more efficiently and effectively and securely run their firm and service their clients, that would be a huge win, in my opinion, for these folks.
I don't get an image came up in my mind as you were saying there, Will, about concentrated into 2 or 3 days, because accounting types, they're always hungry for knowledge and keeping current. So they're looking at blogs and webinars and LinkedIn posts and all kinds of things, regulatory updates throughout the year. But it's drip, 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 isn't it, on top of all the other things that they're doing. So a conference, I guess, an event is a deep dive for a very short, concentrated space of time to absorb as much as they can. Would that be a fair way of putting it?
Yes, absolutely. That's the way that they think about it. And they want to come out, they really want to come out the other side, just sort of when we think about events, like we try to run them in short amounts of time. Like what's the shortest amount of time to accomplish the mission so that those firms can go back and get back to work, but really walk out with the best set of content and expertise.
Well, but from your perspective, why do accountants and CPAs give up their valuable time to attend these events?
Yeah, a few reasons that I believe are paramount for those that are interested in these types of things. But from our perspective, we're in technology and software. From
Hmm.
the accounting perspective, they're thinking about numbers all the time. But the reality is that we're both relationship businesses. It really is all about the people. So the clients we're serving, like what the tech is doing so that the person can get their work done and then go home or serve their family properly, et cetera. And the same is true for accountants, right? They're trying to serve their clients. They want to be advisors. They want to be trusted. They're not looking to do math. That's not necessarily their career. They may be good at that. But when they get on the road, what they're looking to do is connect with people. And that has a few different facets. They want to talk to their vendors and make sure they understand what's next from the various vendors that they're using. They want to talk to other firms and understand what those firms are doing that's working or not working to serve their clients better. They want to have those connection points so that a month later they can call someone and say, I just found out this, or I just experienced this. How are you handling this? What are you thinking about it, et cetera? They obviously want to know what technology is doing, what their vendors are doing, but it really is about those connection points and understanding how they can better serve their clients. They are trying to improve, as you alluded to earlier. And so talking to other people and understanding who's out there is the best way to do that. And so to me, that's the number one thing. Yes, they love to have CPE included. Yes, they love to learn about this or that or the other thing. But to me, the number one thing is the relationships that can be built standing in front of people that are doing similar things that you're doing or serving that industry, which is where we come in.
Yeah. Is there a sense too, Robert, that they enjoy time away from the business just to think, reflect? We hear this phrase, don't we? Working in the business versus working on the business. And you can get so wrapped up in the day to day, but going out to a conference, it does give you that time to unwind a little bit. Would that be fair?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, accountants have a certain stereotype around them until you get them at a party, and then suddenly that all falls away. It's almost as if they've been cooped up in their offices for a whole year, and now they get a chance to let go of that and do something different. So absolutely, socially, yes, but also looking externally at their business is absolutely critical, and that's where the connection points come in again. They need to understand what's working and not working for other groups out there, and how does that apply to their business or not.
Yeah. Denise, let's just flip to the other side of the equation. You are putting on events, you are the host. So, what does a good event look like from your perspective?
Yeah, so from my perspective, a good event really looks like a thriving community, right? So we know that people want to be there to learn. They want to hear from the thought leaders. They want to hear from firms that look like them, things that they're experiencing. And they're looking for kind of that next level of experience when they're meeting with people. So we're talking roundtables, hands-on workshops, offsite networking opportunities where they can build rapport with one another and then carry a new relationship forward, kind of like what Robert was talking about, right? They want to stay connected, learn from one another, have someone they can pick up the phone later or send an email to and commiserate about things, learn from each other. So it is, very much a community focused effort.
I love that idea of community. It's not just a one off event, come in, fill your head up, be entertained, then go back to what you're doing and forget everything. It's absorbing this and building those relationships and applying that knowledge over time. Robert, when we look at why people go to these events, there's an element of choice here. There are so many events around. You can go to every event all the time and be never in your office. So, how do they choose which events to attend? What's your best advice there?
Yeah, when I talk to firms, you need to have a strategy here, and many of them do. Whether it be we do a particular event every other year, or I send one person, but not the same person every year. But I think a lot of firms they're gonna default to AICPA. They're gonna default to whatever vendor they use or are considering using. So obviously the synergy event from Thomson and the connections events from CCH are pretty critical for our firms. They need to know what's next from those different vendors that they're using on a basis before they can make decisions on how that moves for them further. The other one, though, I mean, let's be clear, location is pretty critical as
Sure.
well. And so they want to know that it's in a place that maybe they'd like to be at the particular time of year that it's scheduled. And then it really is a bunch of red blocks through the calendar, right? So there's so many blockers for the accountant as they look at the year and try to dice. And so, a person might have to make choices based on other things that are going on. So that's always going to be a huge factor. When we try to plan our own events, it's always a question mark of what time of the year is it going to fit and what's it going to conflict with? Not a matter of can we avoid, because that's impossible, but what are we conflicting with, and how do we feel about that, and trying not to step on too many toes. But for the individual that's thinking about it, I mean, location is key. Is it close to them? Is it somewhere they want to go? Do they have time to get there and back, right? Because a lot of these events are 2 or 3 nights, and so then the travel adds to that, and if it's closer to you, that's obviously great. So it comes down to location, 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 right? But then beyond that, really about the strategy around it. Is this a vendor I'm using or thinking about using? And when do I need to hear from them? If I'm using Thompson's apps, perhaps I need to hear from them every other year and see what their roadmap is looking like. Or at certain times right now, when we have these new products, new acquisitions, AI, et cetera, that's entering into the market, maybe we need to hear about it more often. So I do think that that's a partner conversation that has to happen at the firm level. And I think it's important to have firm representation in most of these events. But you can't have one person doing it all, right? It needs to be split up. So that type of strategy is certainly something to consider.
And Will, Robert didn't mention cost there, but if you're going to Vegas for a few days, that's not cheap, is it? And even here in the UK, you've got to factor all of that in. So when it comes to ROI from events, accountants know all about ROI. What things are going through their mind in deciding whether it's going to be worth their while attending something?
I think I think you mentioned a couple of them, obviously location and what they need to spend to get back and forth. I think ultimately for them though, it comes back to did they pull out the right types of key points from the conference in order to go back and create efficiencies in the firm or simplified business processes or other types of things that they're doing every day. Because ultimately, if they can go back and point to those types of things for the firm, let's say it costs someone on average a couple grand, 2, 3 grand to go to a conference between the times they spend in travel and things like that. Um, well, 2, 3 grand at $300 an hour is 10 hours. Can they give back 10 hours of efficiency over the course of the year from what they learned, or increase the output, or bill their clients more dollars because they learned better practices for client advisory services? Those would all be examples of like what justifies a good ROI. But I would say that it's at least got to be probably break even on how they would think about it. And then, if they could win, that's always good.
Yeah. Denise, you've been in the events game a long time. How have things changed over the years? Talk to us a little bit about some of the trends and the way things are changing in the events business.
Yeah, so I think we've definitely all witnessed a move away from that traditional kind of stand and deliver. So in terms of how people are receiving the content. So there's going to be certainly more opportunities for people to engage with one another, not so much just listening to a keynote on a stage, though that's always an element, right? You want that motivational speaker to try to rally the troops and get people kind of prying for what's ahead. Definitely personalization. So with the advent of having mobile apps now, you used to walk into a hall and you'll see all these stand-up pull-up signs everywhere, directionals, paper telling you where to go and what to do and when to be there. But now it's all in the palm of your hand. So with that ability on something like a mobile app, people are expecting personalization. So personalization of content, of networking opportunities, of the types of things that they could schedule themselves for. So it's kind of a different thing, in addition to the extension of hybrid opportunities. So continuing that conversation online after the online offline meeting has been really beneficial. And I think we're seeing more of a trend to that mix, keeping the conversations going.
Will, right now, 2025 is one of the flagship events in the calendar for CPAs over there in the States, particularly. How are you differentiating this event from everything else that could be attracting their attention?
Yeah, I think the way we think about that, Rob, it's a really good question because you got AICPA that tends to be an event maybe more focused on industry trends and, big shifts in the industry. And then you fundamentally have a bunch of other shows, call it, Robert mentioned TR Synergy, CCH Connections, Intuit Connect. Um, all of those to me are fairly they're a blend of some trends and then mostly that particular vendor's, tech stack and capabilities and roadmap. The way we think about it is we're looking across all the technologies and technology evolution and trends in the industry. So when you think about the Right Now event, what we're gunning for is a really good blend of trends and hot topics that these folks are looking to understand, combined with a cross technology view of what's going on and best practices and how to better, use what they're doing and get insights from their community. So when you go to the Right Now event, you're not going as just a CCH user or a TR user or whatever. You're going there to really understand and get the best sort of cross technology view of the market. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely makes sense. And I'm just
Yeah.
getting this really strong sense of community with right now that you're all on message with, in that it's not just about showing up, it is about the people that you meet there. You can learn
Yeah.
as much from your networking connections, Denise, can't you, as you can from the speakers on the stage?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably, the vast majority of the value. So yes, certainly talking to the vendors and learning about what new technology they might be able to use in their firm. But I personally think about when I've received the most benefit from events, it's during those times where you're in close quarters talking through topics at roundtables or after hours, having networking and meeting new people from around the country, hearing what they're working on and developing some relationships there. I have relationships that date back 15, 20 years from different events I've gone to. Some are, mentors, and others have just become friends over time. And I think that's a huge value for people that are coming to events.
Yeah, and I want to mention as well, there's an element of client appreciation for our event also. It's a nice event. We do nice things, we have fun, and it's therefore a good time. So like we're trying to blend the progress that we're looking to see in our firms with, enjoying as well. And so for our clients to be there, we love to see them. We love to talk to them. We'll have people that they know or have talked to through the years there, and have some fun.
Yeah. Fun's good. Accountants particularly, it's not known as a fun profession, but it's very satisfying for sure. And just staying with you, Robert, to finish off, what were the key takeaways, strategic advantages for attendees at Right Now 2025?
Yeah, so there's a few of them, but one of the biggest things that I would push for anyone is that transition back is critical. So you've got to take your learnings and you got to do something with them, right? So how do you do that? Because it's distracting. You have fun, you learn all these things, but then you travel back, and then when you sit at your desk afterwards, you're just inundated with all the things that you were missing and need to do next and all that sort of stuff. So one of the strategies that I looked at to implement myself is to section off some time when you're back to think about what are you doing about what you've learned and what you've seen, and to try to understand, okay, what are the action points that I need to implement so that we do get that ROI. And that's very important, obviously. So what are we doing? And often it's the case that if you make a decision to use some new software or whatever it is, or change some process in your firm, if you implement that right away, normally your ROI is reasonably immediate, within months, if it's a good change that you've learned to do. So how to do that, though, it often gets lost. You forget about it. You're on to the next thing right away. So I would always advise, that's one of the key things from Right Now, is that we've got so much coming at you. You've got to isolate what you think is most critical for you and how do you implement that going forward. And I think that's going to always be a big deal coming out of it.
Yeah, and the other advice I'd give there, Rob, just to chime in a little
Yep.
bit, is You mentioned this up front. I mean, obviously, in this profession, you have to get your CPE every
Of
year.
course.
And so oftentimes, I think a lot of people go to these conferences, most of the vendors put them in Q4, in September, October, November, because they know they'll attract a lot of people trying to get CPE. I would say maybe reframing that mindset to be CPE is part of the output, but mostly I need to go, to Robert's point, and latch on to a couple key areas where I can really come back to the firm and make an impact when I return. And if you can reframe it that way, then you're not just going along for the ride. You're really engaged with the program and the rest of the community. And that would be my sort of advice for firms thinking about what they're going to events for and how this particular event will help them out.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing in there if I can. So earlier we talked about scheduling of events and trying to find a place in the calendar, right? And obviously there's only certain areas you can do that. This event was intentionally designed as a mid-year conference. So knowing that folks have gone through, another rigorous high tax season, they're coming out of that and wanting to know, how can we do better? How can we have less of a rigorous tax season next time? So we did intentionally position the conference to be able to help people and as a way to celebrate their team. So yes, with events, location, we wanted it to be in a place where people could celebrate with their staff, celebrate their successes, and then start as a, kind of a rebounding point for the second half of the year and beyond with what they learn.
That's beautifully positioned. And I'm just wondering how Right Now has evolved over the years with all of these trends to meet industry needs. Will, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, sure. I can start, and certainly Denise and Robert could chime in. I mean, the good news is this is only our second year, so we really have just started the conference last year. It was the evolution of several events we were running, particularly under our Academy brand, and really that's where we got the sense of the base of community. How it's evolved from last year to this year is really we're adding a ton of external speakers and thought leaders. We've upped that by going from 17 to close to 30 outside panelists and solo presentations. We're bringing on keynotes that really focus on an accounting firm's identity as a small business. As you know, there's a lot of firms, most of the firms are small businesses. And so what topics matter to them at the macro level, and as entrepreneurs, things like digital marketing, technology, customer experience. And we're revising the breakout sessions to give the more direction to the attendees on where to focus their journey, to Robert's point. We're doing a lot around what are firms talking about that other firms that look like them from a demographic
Yeah.
perspective, so they can latch onto those topics. And then, just essentially continuing to drive our community feel, and particularly, you're involved in this to some degree, where we're adding show virtual networking so the attendees really get to know each other ahead of time. So tons of, I'd say more content, more speakers, segmentation so the firms can decide how they spend their time, and really driving to that ROI that I mentioned up front. What's the most condensed amount of time these firms can go and walk out with a ton of ROI and value?
Yeah, that's really good. Let me conclude by asking all of you the same question. What would be your message to the people out there that are looking for an event, they're looking for a community, they're looking for a home, they're looking to raise their game and upgrade their skills in certain areas? What would be your message to them in that Right Now 2025 is the event for them? Denise?
Good question. I would say if they are looking to learn new ways to, work on the firm versus in the firm, so really taking a look strategically in what they can do, this would be a great place. And we do have a very kind of welcoming community. We've talked a lot about community here. That is probably the biggest piece. I would say an entrance into that and building those connections to move them forward.
What about you, Will? People have got to justify the time, the expense, the travel and everything else. It's a big deal. So
Yeah.
what would you say to the audience here?
Yeah, well, first I'd say it's in Nashville, which is an incredibly fun city. Back to Robert's
Yep.
point, and if you haven't been there, it's a good take. But that aside, for the real ROI, I would say that they're coming to one of the industry's only cross technology, cross vendor, cross trends conference, other than AI
Yeah.
CPA.
It's agnostic, isn't it?
At it,
It's an
yeah,
open door church, if you like.
yeah, exactly. And they're gonna meet people and partners
Mm.
and software providers, and industry specialists, thought leaders of all different slants. And I would say that that's gonna be hugely valuable to them walking out to have a broader perspective on what's going on than just sometimes in a sort of narrower
Yeah.
forum, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Yep.
That's very well put. Robert Prusa, let's leave the last word to you on a call to arms, if you like, to get people along there. What would you say?
Hopefully everyone knows what I'm going to say, which is the people. So we're going to have some amazing clients there, some amazing staff there, and the connection points and the community is going to be offered is going to be fantastic. So from my perspective, not announcing anything, but we've got some new stuff coming as well that you'll want to hear about, that'll be ready by that time. But the reality is those times in between where we are, talking about our businesses, talking about what works. And from our staff, you remember you have a very agnostic perspective of the industry, of the profession, where we can try to understand what problems you have. And I think we're going to be able to deliver solutions or connect you with people that can deliver solutions. So that to me is it. It's the community is the biggest thing.
Well, to our audience all over the world, there'll be conferences near you, hopefully, that will deliver the kind of magnificent things that right now 2025 is doing. But this has given you some tremendous insights into what's happening in the event space for accountants, why you should go, what you should be doing there, how to get the best out of them. We will put it in the show notes, a link to Right Now 2025, but this is one of the go-to events of the year. Thank you, Robert Prusa, Will Yap, and Denise Meyer for joining us on this bonus episode of the Accounting Influencers podcast. We really appreciate your insights and your passion today, and we look forward to seeing all three of you at Right Now 2025.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.